Odds over how to deliver $1.2 trillion in deficit cuts before the November 23rd deadline. Joining us now, House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer. Leader, it's good to see you. The summer seems like it was a while ago when we were in that debt ceiling debacle. But here we are, and what seems to be coming out in dribs and drabs is that now there's, instead of having everybody divided, now there's 6 guys on each side arguing about the same things. Almost we're in the same place. Republicans don't want to raise any taxes, and the Democrats really don't want to cut any entitlements. What are the chances we even get the 1.2 trillion, much less the 4 trillion that people say we need?
You know, yesterday we had a press conference, some 10 or 11 of us, 12 of us, actually 20 Republicans and Democrats, equal number. Mike Simpson, myself, and others, and we made it very clear that over 100 members of the House of Representatives have signed a letter saying to the super committee, look, everything needs to be on the table, mandatory expenditures and revenues, and we need to reach a $4 trillion, give or take, deal to put this country on a sound fiscal path. So we sent a letter to the committee yesterday urging them to come to an agreement on that kind of package. Erskine Bowles and Senator Simpson testified. Alice Rivlin and Pete Domenici testified on Tuesday to the same objective. I am hopeful, given the weight of responsibility that we placed on their shoulders and given the critical nature of achieving the objective of a big deal and doing it within a near term, that they will come to agreement. It's obviously been tough. Obviously, both sides have sort of hardened positions, but it is absolutely essential, in the opinion of an awful lot of people around this country and a large number of members of the House and the Senate, that we come to agreement.
Yeah, do you think there's any reason to hope for something bigger than the 1.2? Steny, go ahead.
Joe, I do. I've talked to all 12 of the members of the committee. And all of them believe that when I talked to them, now this was about a month and a half ago, that a big deal was something that they thought was in the best interest of our country, and that they were going to work towards. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the kind of movement that I think we need, which is again why we sent that letter from 100 of us, 40 Republicans, 60 Democrats, bipartisan. Mike Simpson saying yesterday, look, you're not going to get to where we need to get without dealing with revenues and without dealing with mandatory expenditures or entitlements and cutting spending both in defense and non-defense, so that there is significant support for that. And Mike Simpson, a Republican, former Speaker of the Idaho House, chairman of an appropriations subcommittee, made the observation he thought there were a lot more Republicans who agreed with that proposition than had signed on to the letter. So I think we can put together a majority to support a recommendation of the commission if it's sound, makes sense, protects the most vulnerable in America, as the both commissions and the Gang of Six recommended, and gets us to a $4 trillion deficit reduction over the next 10 years.
If we do, we've noted a few times, if we do, revenue enhancers, tax increases, whatever, and then combine that with spending cuts, it's just a tough time with this economy to try and do both at the same time. Never a good time. Yeah.
Joe, you're right. And what both commissions recommended was, in the short term, in the next 12 months, 18 months, you don't cut spending, don't ratchet back on the economy. We're trying to grow the economy. You're never going to get to a sound fiscal stance if, in fact, the economy is not growing, if you don't create jobs. We've been in the Congress now 300 days this year, just about, and no significant jobs legislation has been passed through the Congress. And very frankly, the president put a bill on the table. We've been pushing the Republicans to put that bill on the floor in the House of Representatives. It was put on the floor in the Senate, got a majority of the senators to support it, but unanimous Republican opposition. We've got to grow the economy, grow jobs, get people back to work if we're going to solve this deficit issue. But we also have to address, as we've said yesterday, looking at the expenditures across the board over the next 10, 11, 12 years and get us back to a sound fiscal path.
Sam?
Do you really think that's possible, Leader Hoyer?
I think
I mean, the track record of Congress at exercising any kind of discipline leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, I think was it Warren Buffett who said that we ought to have a law that said that if Congress had more than a 3% deficit, that they all had to resign. I think, in other words, I think, that's kind of a preposterous proposal, and yet, though that kind of a proposal emanates when there's such frustration with the overall intent and discipline of Congress.
Look, I share that frustration. I thought, and you mentioned it at the early part, Joe mentioned it at the early part, what we did this summer was totally irresponsible, in my opinion, taking America to the brink of default, undermining the confidence of our people here at home and around the world. That made no sense to do, but we did it.
You really think we would have missed an interest payment, sir? I mean, our cash flow management at the national level would have been so horrendous that we would have missed an interest payment.
I think that as a practical matter, no leader wanted to do that. But we put our country in a position where there was an awful lot of talk about it, an awful lot of headlines about it.
Yeah, a lot of talk about it, right. Talk that we never saw under President Clinton or under Ronald Reagan under similar circumstances.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Or Bush.
We did talk about extending the debt, but frankly, under President Bush, there was no expectation that Democrats would ultimately take us to the brink of default, notwithstanding the fact we had a Republican president. The fact is, frankly, though, that both parties have not dealt with this issue as honestly, I think, as we should, and we should continue to do that in the future. But I'm distressed with Congress. I think we have not exercised the responsibility that we need to do. And very frankly, during the last decade, we spent a lot and didn't pay for it. We spent a lot on wars, and we didn't pay for them. We spent a lot on tax cuts, and we didn't pay for them. We spent a lot on a prescription drug program, and we didn't pay for it. We put statutory pay-go back into effect. It has now been effectively put aside once again, as it was under the Bush administration. We've got to all be responsible as a country, as members of Congress. And frankly, we've got to get a handle on this fiscal
You're right.
posture.
You're right, Lee. That's the last time. It's the last time we were bipartisan was when Bush was spending a lot without paying. Yeah, that's the last bipartisanship, unfortunately.
Well, that's a very good comment. But you remember the last time we were bipartisan?
No, I know.
We passed TARP.
Yeah,
we passed TARP, which in my view was absolutely essential so that we didn't go into a depression. And guess who voted for supporting the request of a Republican president and a Republican Secretary of the Treasury? It was Democrats.
That's right.
Acting in a bipartisan fashion. And guess who abandoned the president?
Sorkin's here.
Abandoned their
you
own
wrote
president.
about that, right, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
The Nancy and did he really get down on his knees?
Hank got down on his knees?
Down on his knees. All right. Well,
the story was there. He knows.
Leader Hoyer.
Look. That's you ought not to diminish what happened then by referencing Hank Paulson's actions. Hank Paulson acted, in my opinion, responsibly. It was a tough time, so there was bipartisan action. There ought to be bipartisan action today.
We admire Hank. Anyway, it wasn't disparaging, but we admire you, leader. So we appreciate your time today. You know, there's an election in like a year, less than a year. I think it's amazing, but we don't get older.